It was 2 a.m. You asked God for one clear answer, and what came back sounded exactly like your own voice. So you decided anyway, and you have been checking your own work ever since. Maybe it was the job, maybe it was the conversation you finally had, or the one you still haven't. Whatever it was, you made the call, and some part of you has been quietly grading it every day since, waiting to find out whether you obeyed God or just obeyed yourself. And somewhere in there, you quietly stopped asking, not out of rebellion. You just got tired of not being sure what you heard back. What if you never actually missed his voice? What if you just hadn't learned to recognize it yet, and nobody ever told you that recognizing it is something you learn? Because that part got left out, you were handed a Bible, a seat in a church, and the quiet assumption that hearing God is automatic for real believers. Then it wasn't automatic, and you did what serious men do. You assumed the problem was you. It isn't. The reason you can't tell his voice from your own is not that he stopped talking. Silence was never your problem. You have been auditing yourself for a failure that isn't in the record. And notice what you have been doing all this time, checking, turning it over, asking whose voice it was months later. Men who stopped caring don't do that. The audit you have been running on yourself is the proof you are still in this. Don't close this. What's coming isn't a sermon about praying more. There are 3 tests in this video, concrete, usable tonight. And not one of them asks you how peaceful you feel. And the third one has nothing to do with how spiritual you are. It's the one almost nobody has ever told you. It's also the reason you have been stuck on this for years. Here's the sentence running underneath all of it. You have probably never said it out loud. If it were really God, it would be obvious. I would know. It sounds like humility. It's actually the most discouraging thing you believe. Look at 1 Samuel 3. A boy is sleeping in the tabernacle at Shiloh. The lamp hasn't gone out yet, and God speaks, out loud, audible. The real thing. No impression, no feeling. A voice in a dark room. And Samuel gets it wrong. He runs to Eli. Here am I, for thou callest me. Wrong man. He goes back to bed. It happens again. He goes to Eli. Wrong man again. It happens a 3rd time. Same voice, same room, same wrong door. Samuel heard the audible voice of God, and he was wrong 3 times in a row. And Scripture never once calls that sin. It calls it inexperience. You don't have a hearing problem, you have a recognition problem, and a recognition problem has a solution, because recognition is a skill. Nobody is born knowing a voice. You learned your own father's footsteps in a hallway. You weren't born with that either. I'll tell you where I learned this one. It cost me everything I had. I had a business online, a real one. 5-star seller, sales every day. The thing was working, and I killed it myself. A few bad calls in a row on what my ads were actually returning, and it was gone. And in the middle of that panic, I heard God tell me to walk away from all of it and start selling food. Sandwiches. I had never made a sandwich for a paying customer in my life. I called it obedience. I told people God had redirected me. My family paid for that redirection for years. I still can't prove to you whose voice that was, but I know what it was doing. It was getting me out of a room I couldn't stand to be in. That's not direction. That's escape with a Bible verse taped to it. Fear, wearing the clothes of faith. But here is the good news. If recognition is learned, then it can be taught. And there are 3 places in this one chapter where the text shows you exactly how. Before the tests, hear what they are not. These 3 tests are not a machine for making God talk. He is not a vending machine. You are not going to trick him into clarity. This is for something smaller and more urgent, so you can stop going insane inside your own head. Read verse 4 slowly. And the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. Notice what God did. He said a name, something specific. Test 1, the direction test. Don't ask what the voice felt like. Ask what it said. God names something specific and he pulls you toward him. Accusation is vague and it talks about you, who you are, what you always do, what you'll never stop being. Here's the blade. If you can't write down in one sentence what to do in the next 10 minutes, it isn't direction, it's a mood. And before we get to test 3, there's one verse in this chapter that quietly destroys the advice you have been given your whole life. Note what the verse does not say. It doesn't say the room filled with warmth. It doesn't say Samuel felt settled. It says he heard a name and he got up. Test 2. The say it again test. Look at how Samuel actually ended up certain, not because the voice felt a particular way. He was certain because it came 4 times, and because a man who had known that voice for 60 years told him what it was. That's the standard. So ask the honest question, did it come more than once? Has anyone who has walked with God longer than you heard it and confirmed it? If the answer is no, you are not disobeying by waiting. You're being sane. Hear what waiting actually is, because you have been told it's weak faith. It isn't. Scripture has a name for it. It calls it testing the spirits. Waiting is just the room where you do that, and you don't test it against how you feel. You test it against the book. God doesn't contradict himself. He will not tell you at 2 in the morning something he spent 66 books forbidding. If what you heard can't survive an open Bible in a calm morning, it wasn't him. So wait. Not because you're unsure of God, because you're honest about yourself. Turn a few pages forward in the same book. Saul is waiting for Samuel. 7 days. The army is scattering. The enemy is massing. Samuel is late, and the pressure was real. Don't let anyone tell you it wasn't. So Saul does the reasonable thing. Not the sinful thing, the reasonable thing. He offers the sacrifice himself, a right act at the wrong hour, by the wrong hand. Listen to how he explains it. I forced myself and offered a burnt offering. I forced myself. He lost a kingdom in the last hour of a legitimate wait, and years later, the same prophet hands the same king the verdict that sits over every rushed decision a believer ever makes. To obey is better than sacrifice. If you want to see the opposite, look at Jesus. He took an entire night of silence on a mountain before he picked 12 men. You can take one night before you blow up your life. And here's the part that lets you breathe. If it was him, he will say it again. He called a boy 4 times for one sentence. He is not a God who speaks once and leaves you guessing. The pressure to decide right now has never once come from him. Have you ever forced your own hand just because the clock was ticking? I have. The decision I told you about earlier, the one my family paid for. It came once, at night, and wanted an answer before sunrise. I never tested it against anything. I just moved. Now let's kill the thing you were taught. 1 Samuel 3, verse 15. And Samuel lay until the morning, and opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. He finally hears clearly. He knows exactly who spoke and exactly what was said. And he lies there until morning, afraid to open his mouth. Not confused, certain and terrified. If peace were the test, Samuel failed it on the one night of his life when he was unmistakably right. This last one is going to sting before it helps. Test 3, the Eli test. Samuel only recognized the voice because someone else named it for him and read who that someone was. Eli, a priest whose own house was already under judgment, a father who had failed spectacularly and knew it. God did not send a flawless man to train that boy's ears. He used the ears of a man who had wasted most of his own life. God didn't give Samuel a perfect priest. He gave him a present one. Stop diagnosing yourself as unspiritual. You're not getting it wrong because you lack faith. You're getting it wrong because you're doing it alone. And you don't need a perfect mentor to fix that. You need one honest man who has heard God longer than you have. And don't turn this into a project. You are not looking for a mentor. You are sending one message this week to one man who has walked with God longer than you have, and saying the embarrassing sentence out loud, "I think God might be saying something to me and I can't tell if it's him." That's it. That's the whole test. The reason you haven't done it isn't that you don't know anyone. It's that saying that sentence costs something. And if you just realized you don't have that man, say that in the comments. There are men reading this in the same room you're in. That isn't the test. It's the first step toward being able to take it. 3 tests. What it says, not what it feels like. Did it come more than once? Stop doing it alone. Now look at verse 7. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. Read that again, slowly. God spoke to a boy who did not yet know him well enough to recognize his voice. He didn't wait until Samuel was qualified. He didn't wait for the boy to get his theology straight, or his ears trained, or his record clean enough to deserve the conversation. He spoke first. And when Samuel got it wrong 3 times in a row, God didn't go quiet. He called again, and again, and again. You have been running a different story in your head, that the line went dead because of something you did, that he stopped because you stopped being worth the words. The text says the opposite, and it says it out loud. The voice came before the recognition. It always does. He didn't wait for you to recognize him. He kept calling until you could. Hear what that means for the thing you're holding right now. The decision you already made, the one you have been grading yourself on for months. You did not miss your window. There is no third strike here. The God who called a boy who couldn't tell him apart from an old man in the next room is not the God who calls once and walks out. He repeats. That's not a loophole, that's his character. Put the audit down. You're not a man who failed to hear God. You're a man who is learning a voice. The way every man in that book learned it. Slowly, wrongly at first, with someone else's help. And one last thing before I let you go. Every year you spent thinking you were deaf, he was still speaking. The recognition was late. He never was. If this found you tonight, don't just agree with it. Say it back. Write this in the comments. Speak, Lord. I'm listening. Not I'll figure it out, not I'll try to be more spiritual. Just, I'm listening. And there's something else you're carrying that he never handed you. That's the next one.